You're not burned out. Burned out people, they rest, they recover. You're bored because the life you built stopped asking anything real of you. So sit with that for a minute. Just think about it. Most people who tell me that they're burned out, they still have energy. They're still showing up. They're still delivering. They're still functioning at a real level that others would sometimes envy. The problem isn't lack of energy. It's lack of direction for the energy that they still have. I've lived it. Look, when I was in Hawaii, if you watch my other videos, you know the story. The girl of my dreams was supposed to go there with me, broke up with me over text after I went there, found us a place, an apartment. Over the course of the next 6 months or whatever, I hit rock bottom really close. It was really tough. But what that also taught me was that it wasn't just the breakup, right? I was putting band-aids over how I was really feeling. I was feeling hollow, even during that time and dating women and the girl of my dreams, finding this new job in Hawaii. They were all band-aids. There was a stretch probably a year after the breakup where I'd found this other amazing girl in Hawaii, and I thought that's what I needed because I still had the job. I still had a good job. I'm still living in freaking paradise, right? I should be ecstatic at this point. I was standing on a beach, and again, it should have felt peak, and I felt nothing, nada. I'm not exhausted either. I felt exhausted, but that wasn't the cause of this. I was just hollow. Like I'd been chasing this version of my life that looked right from the outside and was thought it was what I was meant for, but it meant nothing from the inside. Nothing. And that honestly scared me way more than burnout ever did. Because what the hell am I doing? So here's what we're going to cover today. I want to talk about how to tell the difference. Why a lot of high performers almost always misread this, and a 7-day experiment, which I love, to start reconnecting to what actually feels alive to you. So, first, I want to talk about some of the moments that can wake you up. The first is what I call, and some people I've worked with call the mountain moment. You've been climbing for years, right? Title, the income, the number in your account, the girl of your dreams, whatever it is, white picket fence, right? You did all the work to get where you thought you were supposed to be. You made all the sacrifices to get there. And then you arrived, and the view was flat. Maybe there was a day that it was like, all right, but it was flat. There's no fanfare, no sense of landing, really no sense of accomplishment. Maybe again for 24 hours, 48 hours at the most. There's just this quiet disenchantment that you didn't expect and you couldn't explain, and maybe still can't explain. A coach that I once worked with described it as simply standing on a mountain and realizing the mountain was never the point. Jeff Bezos, he had this at 31. He was thriving on Wall Street, respected, he was well paid, and by all means, he was genuinely good at it. And by any measure, the life was working for him. But he still walked away. Not because the job ground him down or he was running on fumes or empty. He looked at the life in front of him and felt nothing pulling him forward. So he left and started something that did. He didn't need rest, he needed a different mountain. The second moment is quieter, right? It's you're sitting in a meeting or you're driving home from work on the same route for the 100th time. Sometimes you don't even remember driving home, it's all habitual. And something cuts through this one time. You realize you've been on autopilot for months. Nothing has actually required you. This is what happened to me in Hawaii. I'm standing on a beach and I realized I've been running on autopilot. I've been numb. I've just been going through the motions for months and I'm in freaking Hawaii. I should be ecstatic, right? The system runs, the calendar fills, the outputs, they come out. Well, you're not failing at anything. Somewhere in there, you just kind of disappear. And the panic that follows isn't because you're tired, it's because you realize that you've outsourced your own aliveness to a structure that doesn't need you anymore. Both of these showed up in my life really multiple times. I kind of already talked about in Hawaii. 5 years later in Thailand, kind of same thing. My COVID hit, my business started floundering. I had to leave, right? I got booted from Thailand, my home, a life I had started to build there. Everything kind of collapsed. And what broke wasn't my energy. It was recognizing that the structure that I had built, that I'd spent years building, no longer fit who I was becoming. There was a struggle, right? I moved to Arizona, moved back to Hawaii for a moment, moved to Arizona to be closer to my family at the time. And I was still trying to keep this business afloat that was floundering. And I just remember it clearly like this, it didn't excite me anymore. The business wasn't what I wanted to do in the first place. I was doing it to start my own business. And so I didn't have to work a 9 to 5. But then when I came back to Arizona, got booted from Thailand, everything, reality came crashing down and it wasn't who I was anymore. It didn't fit who I was becoming and who I wanted to be. So the grief, yeah, there was some grief there. I lost a lot when I left Thailand, but it wasn't really at the bottom level. It wasn't about losing the work. It wasn't about losing the career I'd built. It was realizing I'd been living this version inside this version of myself that had already moved on. So, in both moments in your life, both times for me, they really shared the same sentence, even if it was phrased a little bit differently. Even if you don't say it out loud, I don't recognize this life anymore. I don't recognize myself anymore in this life. And those are bold statements. If you get there, you're hollow, right? You're running on autopilot, you're numb. Things got to change. Most people, honestly, when they hit it, they do the wrong thing. I've done the wrong thing at least 15 times. Right? They book a vacation. They find the other girl of their dreams, thinking that's the missing piece. Book this vacation, come back 2 weeks later, nothing's changed. The easiest example is the vacation, right? Nothing's changed. Get the girl of your dreams, the guy of your dreams that you think is the person. 3 months later, nothing's changed. You feel the same. Because the problem was never the hours. The problem was never a missing piece. You're climbing the wrong mountain. So let's talk about burnout versus boredom and how to tell the difference. And I know that sounds silly, but when you're in it, it's hard to tell. I couldn't tell for a long time. I thought I was burned out. Really, it was the life I was living, right? It didn't excite me anymore. I wasn't passionate about it. So burnout is a physical state, right? It's real. It can be chronic. So burnout is a physical state. Boredom can be very real. And while bored is just a term we toss around, boredom in your life, if you're always bored, if you're numb, if you're just going through the motions and you're bored all the time, that's real. That can be chronic. And it's high performer boredom, really. It's a meaning crisis. It's a meaning of your life crisis. And it can be a big deal. Like I said, the word bored gets tossed around a lot and it's almost lost its meaning. But when it's in your life, it can be a big thing. One needs rest, the other needs a reckoning with purpose. Prescribing rest for a meaning crisis is like taking painkillers when you have a broken bone, right? It dulls the signals that are going to your brain, but it doesn't fix the damn thing. So how do you tell which one you're dealing with? A few clear signs can point to boredom. The energy still exists. It's just pointing at nothing real. Sleep helps for sure, but not because you need recovery, because you need escape. Winds don't move you anymore. Or then when they do, it's like for a second. You hit the goal, you get the recognition, you feel nothing. And the clearest one that you'll feel, you can still go hard for something that actually matters. The tank isn't empty, right? You can still do this thing. It's just sitting there with nowhere to go. And one of the clearest ones is that you can still go hard for something that actually matters to you. Your tank's not empty. It's just sitting there with nowhere to go. You don't have a pointed direction. You don't have that purpose that you're going for. In true burnout, it looks different. Look, I'm not poo-pooing burnout. I have videos on burnout too. Burnout is a very real thing. I've been there too. I've been in both. I'm just separating them because they need to be separated. With burnout, the tank is empty. Full stop. Small tasks feel insurmountable. Rest can help, but slowly. And recovery, it takes longer than a weekend. It takes longer than those 2 days that we get typically. And the problem, it feels external. The system wore you down. The load broke something. You weren't hollowed out. You were ground down. Coaching data really shows that 70 to 80% of professionals hit periods of misalignment. Most call it burnout because that's the word they know. That's the word I know. That's the word that's tossed around everywhere today. But it's the wrong word. And it takes them somewhere that doesn't help. So I want to talk a little bit about the autopilot problem and throw you a 7-day experiment because we all love those, right? I love those because they're easy and they're doable. When your daily actions, they consistently conflict with who you actually are, that friction drains you, not through overwork, but through inauthenticity. Psychologists, they call it cognitive dissonance. You've probably heard that term before. You're not tired from doing too much. You're drained from pretending that the wrong things matter, right? You're just going through the motions of your day job. And it just doesn't grab you anymore. So every day you perform a version of your life that doesn't quite fit. Your system pays just a quiet tax on it. So one day the account's empty and you can't explain why. That's when I was standing on the beach. That's when you may have had an aha moment and why you're watching this video. High performers, especially, they're really exposed because they're good at building systems. They optimize, they streamline, they create structures that run efficiently. And then, without realizing it, they do the same thing to their own life. A version of themselves that hits the metrics and requires almost nothing from them emotionally. The system runs, they disappear inside it. And I'm saying they, that was me. That could be you. It's harder when things look when you feel like you should love your life because you have a good job, you have a great life, whatever it is that you define a great life, or the people in your circle define as a great life, you have a great life. So you feel bad feeling numb inside of it. You feel bad complaining about it. You feel like you don't have that right because this person over there, and look what they're going through, and look what they're going through. But you have a right to feel that because it's your life. If you're bored inside of it, what the hell are we even doing here? Right. So, studies on boredom and high performers really show that it produces the same symptoms as a burnout: low energy, cynicism, and a creeping sense of inefficiency and a creeping sense of inefficacy. But the cause isn't over demand in this case, it's under stimulation. Your brain isn't depleted, it's under challenged, and it's signaling that fact very loudly to you right now. Rest fixes one, the other needs friction. It needs deliberate, intentional friction that reminds you what engagement actually feels like, what fun and purpose in your life actually feels like. And that's the end goal, right? That should be in this case. So 7 days, no rebuilding your life, no new goals, no journaling before sunrise. Hey, I love goals. I love journaling. I'm just saying this is easy. This is the easiest 7 day experiment I think I've thrown together. But I love 7 day experiments. I think 7 days is a good number. Just one small thing each day that breaks the pattern, that breaks the autopilot. Take a different route home, for example. Have a conversation without checking your phone. For example, I think we should all do this anyway. Get that. Put our damn phones face down when we're actually talking to someone face to face. We don't need that shit. It's too much. Do that thing that you've pushed to next week for 3 months straight. I used to habitually do that. Anything big, I would push out a week. I don't have time right now. I don't have time. I'll do it next week. It was really just me pushing it out, right? Me not doing the scary thing. Do that thing. The only requirement is that it feels slightly different from your normal in these 7 days. Again, one thing every day, something that feels slightly different than normal. Not dramatic. It doesn't have to be this huge dramatic thing, just off the rails, even a little bit. Each evening, write one sentence. What did I notice today that felt alive? All right. This is your starting point. By day 7, you have 7 data points. That pattern shows itself. You start to see some things. Most people on autopilot, they have no idea how thoroughly their life is running on the rails until they deliberately step off, even briefly. You have no idea. The aliveness doesn't require a dramatic change right now. It just requires your attention pointed somewhere real. The goal isn't to blow up your life, isn't to blow up what you've built. It's a lot simpler than that. It's just notice what your life is actually asking of you right now and whether it's asking anything at all. Because a life that stopped asking anything of you isn't peaceful. It's stalled. I talk about the rocking chair test in another video. I'll try to link it in the show notes. And it's basically this thing that if you've never heard of it, when you're 80, when you're in a rocking chair and you're looking back on your life, it asks you to visualize the future a little bit, and then in the future look back at your life. Because usually, almost to a T, everyone that's interviewed when they're like 80, they have these major regrets in life. And a lot of them it's not something that they did that they regret, it's the things that they didn't do. I'm going to ask you really quickly to think about that. Look back. Imagine that you're 80 and you're looking back on your life and you lived a life that you were stalled, that you were just going through the motions, but you don't look good from the outside, so you just kept living it, white picket fence, whatever. You're gonna have a lot of damn regrets, right? I know I would. So anyway, if rest isn't fixing it, rest was never the answer. The real question is whether your life is still asking anything real of you, or whether you've been running a system that outgrew you a long damn time ago. Hey, if you want to go deeper on this, moving from that recognition into actual purpose alignment, if this has hit something with you, if it's a new idea to you, the high functioning hollow, as I like to call it, that's me too. That's not a bad term at all. I have other videos that hit on this even harder. I have videos that hit burnout too. I have videos that hit purpose because that's what I do is help people get out of this rut, get out of feeling hollow and find that purpose. So, man, we got to live a life we enjoy. You got to live a life you enjoy. Check out my other videos. I'll see you there. If you want the rocking chair test, I'll try to throw that video in the show notes as well. I'll link it there. So, anyway, appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.